Alright guys, we finally have some news and some content leading up to the 10th anniversary. Now it may not be a lot, but it's something. Dokkan is breadcrumbing us right now. We are Hansel and Gretel. They're about to trap us in the oven and bake us up real nice. Coming soon, no dates confirmed. We're going to be getting the 83rd Virtual Dokkan Ultimate Clash, which is going to be part 1. So following the trend of last year with the Annie, part 2 is going to come during most likely part 2 of the anniversary itself. And we're also getting a GOKU'S story edition of Ultimate Red Zone. Then we'll also be getting, which isn't correlated to the anniversary, stage 3 of the Tricks Won't Work Towel Breaking Challenge, which will of course cover a video of how to get 99.999999999999999
A few moments later.
million damage from that. And we're getting stage 67 for ESBR, which is going to be Corroded Body and Mind. But the major news in this video, of course, is going to be the new Red Zone event of GOKU'S Story Edition. Now, this is early doors. Do take it with a pinch of salt, because it doesn't guarantee or confirm anything. But maybe, as a theory, a full fusion lineup may not be on the cards after all if we're having a red zone themed around Goku's story, and maybe we're leaning towards Goku himself, or more the Kamehameha theme with maybe a fusion unit or two sprinkled in there with some Goku units. As I said, having a red zone event themed around Goku's story doesn't hint at anything, but it's purely speculation. We could still get a full fusion lineup. We could get one of them, two of them, none of them. We could get 4 Gokus. We could get Goku and Vegeta. We could get UI and Jiren. Who knows? It doesn't mean a thing, but it's purely speculation. Going off this graphic, we can see Saiyan Saga Jeets. We can see Frieza. We can see Cell. We can see Kid Buu, Hit, Jiren. Now, typically, the graphic for a Red Zone event doesn't reveal every single stage that is going to be coming in that event. Although I can't really see or think of too many other stages we could add to this based off the enemy they've already chosen, which seems to be like Goku's biggest fights or adversaries. You could include some DB Saga stuff, but I feel like if there was some Dragon Ball Saga enemies in there, some Dragon Ball stages, they would have had 1 or 2 on the actual graphic itself. But as I said, typically you don't have every single enemy from each stage on the graphic until every single stage is actually released. So let's do a little bit of theory crafting. Based on the enemies that have already been shown for this Goku's story edition of Red Zone, what could the stages hold? So starting with Jeets, easy one, 2-phase fight, base form Jeets, then transforms into Great Ape. Sure, Dokkan could add some gimmicks to this, but purely just quite a strong fight that goes into a giant form that maybe has multiple super attacks when he transforms into Great Ape Vegeta. Then another 2-phase fight that could be pushed to 3 depending on how they do it, which is of course Final Form Frieza, goes into full power Frieza, can do a ton of damage, maybe even has a KO super attack like a Mega Shenron from the OG GT edition of Red Zone, or push it to a 3-phase fight where you have that final phase, considering it isn't a final stage of the actual whole event, have a 3rd phase, the final phase, be one where if you get hit by a super attack, it essentially functions as a KO super attack, but you have 1 turn to essentially kill Frieza with like a singular HP bar before he supers you and dies. So you could skim it to a 3-phase fight if Dokkan wanted to stretch it that way. For Cell, again, you're looking at a very short stage. You're looking at a very short fight, which is going to be a 1-phase fight, because the only notable time Goku did fight Cell was at the beginning of the Cell tournament or the Cell games, where Goku subs out and lets Gohan take over. Just don't get me wrong, peak fight. But this could easily be a 1-phase fight. Cell could have some healing. Cell could also have a fat HP bar. Maybe a lot of defense, a lot of damage reduction, but most of all, a chunky HP bar to prolong out the single phase fight. Maybe stretch it to a phase 2 where you face some Cell Juniors with Cell. But most notably, if we're going off of the theme, which is Goku's story, which seems to be his greatest foes, his greatest adversaries, then singular phase, ton of HP, good amount of damage reduction, good amount of defense. Make the one phase last longer than say 5-6 turns. Then Kid Buu, just like Cell, I don't see being any longer than one phase, but maybe taking some inspo from the Majin Buu Saga edition of Red Zone, considering there is a Kid Buu stage from that. You could have a nullify, maybe so it isn't too similar. Get rid of the nullify, have a dodge mechanic. Kid Buu can have some healing again. Again, give him a chunky HP bar, good amount of damage reduction, good amount of defense. Make him hit pretty hard, maybe even super attack more than once. Following the inspiration from the Majin Buu Saga edition, maybe the more you hit him, the more damage he's able to do. Maybe he buffs both attack and defense this time. Maybe if you get his HP down to a certain threshold, he does more damage, has less defense, kind of like Goku and Frieza, or maybe his defense remains untouched. Just something to beef out the fight so the one phase fight isn't too short. We're going for the hat trick, another one phase fight. I mean, you could stretch hit to 2, depending on which hit you're using, either the Tournament of Power or Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament, which I think that's the one you'll probably use because that's the more noteworthy one, where Goku goes SSBK. You can have first phase hit and then you can have second phase hit, which can be hit awoken. Of course, the usual gimmick around hit is stunning, so he could either do that at the beginning of the turn and then he could stun one of your enemies, maybe even 2, or attach it to his super attack, maybe even both if you want to make him that much of a scumbag. Again, maybe make his HP a little bit more chunky, maybe give him a dodge mechanic again, so the 2 phases can stretch out a little bit longer. I mean, one of these like 1 phase, 2 phase fights can be relatively on the shorter side because we haven't had extremely short content in a while. I just kind of don't want to go back to that just because, don't get me wrong, Fusion Zamasu was a fun fight, but we've been round the block for extremely short content and I kind of don't want to go back. I'm not saying I need 20 turns, but I just rather not go back to a 5-turn fight. It just got really old and really boring pretty quickly. But yeah, give hit a lot of damage, decent amount of HP. You can stretch it to 2 phases if you want to. Give him a stun either at the beginning of the turn or on super attack. Give him a dodge mechanic. Maybe make him stronger. The more he dodges you, that might be quite a fun mechanic, or RNG related. I don't know, you can let me know down in the comments for that one. And then for what will most likely be the final stage, unless maybe we're going to branch into GT potentially, who knows. But for the current potential final stage from the graphic we've seen, we have another 2-phase fight, which is going to be Jiren, which will most likely be the final stage and the most difficult. So we're talking 3-4 million plus on a super attack. We're talking chunky HP bar, damage reduction, defense, maybe even a nullify on super, maybe cancel dodge, maybe give him a stun, maybe give him a seal, maybe give him both. Maybe once he goes on to full power Jiren, not only is he going to have more of all of those stats, maybe take some inspo from Goku and Frieza. You get him down to like 50% HP or less, Jiren gets an attack buff. Jiren gets more attack. Don't get rid of any of his defense, or maybe you can, but essentially Jiren gets stronger. You know, beef him up a bit more. Maybe the more he gets hit, the more damage he can do, the more attack buffs he gets. Maybe the more turns that pass, the more attack and defense Jiren can get. You could also give him a dodge. You can give him a lock-in mechanic. Can't stand them, but by all means, if you want to add that in Dokkan, go for it. I'd prefer if you didn't, but it's definitely a possibility. One thing's for certain, he's more than likely going to be doing a shit ton of damage to go with whatever gimmick they decide to give him. But those are just some of the ideas that they could give these stages of the enemies they've currently shown in the Goku Story Edition of Red Zone. Again, typically they don't show every enemy from each stage on the graphic before the event's even released, so there could be more. By all means, even though they're not shown there could be some DB Saga enemies. There could be DKP, although I don't think it's quite odd how they didn't throw in one Dragon Ball Saga enemy, considering we're starting off with Scout of Vegeta, so maybe Dragon Ball isn't actually included in there. But then again, I don't know how wide we're going to go with the Goku Story Edition of this, but maybe he's the only enemy in there from Dragon Ball Saga, so maybe that's why he isn't included in there. But of the enemies they've shown, those are kind of his major fights, without fusing or having maybe another enemy also involved, without also including movies. So maybe we could also breach into GT as well. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments of Goku Story Edition coming of Red Zone. Maybe some more enemies that could be involved in this, some more stages that aren't included on the graphic. And then by all means, let me know your thoughts of what they could do for the actual stages themselves. Mine was a quick spitball of the idea, but you can let me know some of your thoughts and theories down in the comments. But I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care, have a great day, and peace.